In this video, I'm going to show you how to create this DIY Mother's Day embossed card with watercolor florals. Hi friends, my name is Maira with TPL Designs and I'm creating this video tutorial as part of the Peggy Design Team. So let's go over the tools that we're going to need. The first thing is going to be paper, which I am using this mixed media canson paper and I cut it to size. This is 5 inches by 7. Next we have the monoline studio paints by the Pigeon Letters 03 and 05, and also the studio round brush number 4. We're also going to be using watercolors, and this is the ones that are going to be using today. You can also use any watercolors you have or even brush pens. Next will be our embossing pen, and it's from Ranger, and we're also going to be using the embossing powder from Recollections and the embossing heat tool as well. And also we're going to need a regular eraser, and this mono sand eraser is optional, but it's gonna come in very handy in case you needed to use it. So the next thing is totally optional, which is this craft paper. It is 7 inches by 5 folded. Like I said, this is completely optional, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to use it to finish the card. And don't worry, links to everything that I'm going to be using here will be in the blog post or down below. And now let's go ahead and get started. So the first step is to sketch our floral doodles, and for this card I'm going to be using only 4 different types of greenery and 1 type of flower, and you're going to see how making small changes will give you an illusion that you have so many different types of floral doodles, but in reality we're just going to use 4 different around the card. Okay, I went ahead and paused this part of the video so you can see these are the 4 greenery and the 1 flower that we're gonna be drawing around the card. We're gonna leave the center so we can add our phrase inside of it. And this card is, I'm creating it for Mother's Day, but you can use it for really any occasion, birthday, as a thank you card, or anything that you would like. And as you're doing the doodles around the card, just keep in mind that you can keep the same doodles or you can add simple changes to them. For example, like I did here, instead of connecting the leaves directly to the stem, I added just a little branch to make it different from the one that I did before. And these subtle changes to your doodle is what's going to make a difference. You can also keep them the same or change, for example, here, the space that you do the leaves. You can make them connecting in the same place, or you can add a little variation. You can draw lines to the leaves and all sorts of different little changes that are going to make a big difference. Alright, so this is how our sketch looks, and now we're gonna leave the center to write our Happy Mother's Day sentiment. And what I did here is that I put washi tape around the card to hold it down, and now I'm using the knitter eraser. And so basically the knitter eraser, I love it because it helps us to erase most of the pencil sketch but leave just enough that you can see the sketch that you have underneath it. You might not be able to see it that well here in the video, but I promise you I can see it really well as I will be doing the watercolor next. And before we start the watercolor painting, there's 2 tips that I wanted to give you, and one is to tape down your paper. I'm using washi tape here. You can use painter's tape as well, and this is because we're going to be using watercolor. The paper is going to start bending a little bit. And the other tip is to pick your colors beforehand. Just grab a scrap piece of paper and do some swatches of the colors that you want to put in your card, just because you want to make sure beforehand that you like the colors before you start painting on it. Okay, now comes the fun part. We're gonna start using the watercolor, and I usually just dip my brush in water and then grab a little bit of the watercolor. These are very concentrated and very saturated, so usually I just grab it a little bit, I put it back in the water, and as always, the more saturated you want the color to be on your paper, the less water you're gonna use, and vice versa. And I'm going to continue doing the same throughout the whole piece. If I wanted to add more, then I just grab a little bit more color, as well as if it is too saturated, I will grab a little bit more water. And then another suggestion that I have is for you to have a paper towel or a rag, something that you can use to take away the excess of water from your paper. Another really cool thing about watercolor that you can do is to first paint just with the water, plain water, and then add some of the paint on top of it. It creates a really beautiful effect that you can do. I love doing this to sort of like make the color or the watercolor different on the design that you're making. And for this Mother's Day watercolor card, we're gonna continue doing the same thing throughout the whole process, dabbing the brush in water and then in the watercolor. And then like I did here, you can use your paper towel to dab the design and remove the excess of water or paint that you have. And so that's just a really quick tip that you can use if you feel like you saturated your doodle too much. And so another thing that I wanted to mention is to do as I said and know as I do, because I should have had another jar of clean water to dip my pen and then the dirty one to clean it. So make sure you have another little jar of water. That's the one that you're gonna keep clean, and then the other one is to clean your brush in between uses. So don't do what I'm doing here. Okay, and if you were wondering what was going to happen with this blank space over here, don't worry, because what we're going to do is just add these small circles and dots everywhere where you think there is a white space that needs to be covered, as you see here. And this is just going to give it a little bit more pop to the watercolor florals doodles around the card. Okay, so don't be like me and wait until your watercolor is completely dry before you move into the next step. Otherwise, you're gonna have these smudges of watercolor paint around. But don't worry, because I got this mono sand eraser, which is gonna be your best friend if you are impatient like me, because this is gonna help you remove the watercolor where you don't want it to be, like right here. And just make sure that you are gentle and you don't go and try to remove it all at once. So just do a little bit and then keep doing it until you see that the watercolor paint is removed. But you want to be gentle enough so you don't damage the paper. Okay, so now it's like it didn't even happen, and so after you're done, you're gonna go ahead and erase and the pencil sketch left from the doodles. And as you can see here, I went ahead and also sketched the Happy Mother's Day in the center. You don't see it very much because I sketched it and used the sand eraser as I showed you in the beginning of the video, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using the Monoline Studio Pens 03 and 01, and I'm going to go ahead and outline all the floral doodles that we did. For the outline part, I'm going to be using the Monoline Studio Pen 03, and then for the details and shading of the flowers and the leaves, I'm going to be using the 01. Since the watercolor part was done, now enjoy the peeling, the satisfying peeling of the washi tape. And I feel it's better when I turn around the paper, and so that's why I'm gonna go ahead and remove the washi tape now, so I can turn the paper around more comfortable now that I don't have to worry about the watercolor part. So once you're done with the outlining part, it's time to do the embossing, and for this we're gonna use the embossed pen. I decided to only do the embossing technique on the word mother because I wanted to highlight and add the beautiful shine that embossing creates. And for this I'm using faux calligraphy. Basically what I'm doing is I am doing the lettering part, and then I am thickening the downstrokes, which is every time that I move my pen downward. If you would like to learn this faux calligraphy technique, I have a couple of videos, free worksheets on my blog at vialdesigns.com that can help you with that. We're going to be using the embossing powder, which I'm using this one from Bread Collections, and go ahead and pour the powder all over the word that you want to be embossed. And don't worry, we're not going to waste all of this, but you just want to make sure that everything is covered. And then grab a scrap piece of paper, which we're going to use to save some of the powder that didn't stick. You're gonna put it in the scrap piece of paper like this, and then just tap your card to remove the excess of embossing powder on the paper. And then you can also grab a brush to help you with removing the excess of the powder around your card. Okay, so once you completely remove the excess of powder, we are actually going to put it back in the container, and that way we can save it for another use. And then go ahead and grab your embossed heat tool, and we're going to heat this baby up so we can see the shine. And just make sure you don't put it too close to the paper. Let it wait a little bit so it starts doing the magic. And you know, if you put it too close to the paper, it may burn the paper, so just keep a good distance. I would say like at least 3 inches apart from the paper is good. And then just watch how beautiful this embossing technique turns out. So after I was done with the heat tool, I went with my brush and tried to remove some of the extra bits of pieces of the embossing powder. I don't mind them too much because I actually think that it gives it like a good glitter and shining effect to it, but I went ahead and removed as much as I could. For the rest of the sentiment, and I'm using the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen in the hard tip, and I'm gonna be writing happy and date using my block lettering. Again, I also have workbooks, worksheets, and free tutorials on my blog if you would like to learn how to do this type of lettering. And I absolutely love how this card turned out. The embossing gives it a beautiful shine to mothers, and the watercolor, I love how the watercolor doodle turns out, and you can totally leave the card like this. But if you are a little bit extra like me, let me show you what I did next. So I have this craft paper card. You can totally cut your own, but I do have this set and I'm gonna link it below. And the card measures 5 inches by 7 folded. And what I'm going to do is I'm gonna be using this double-sided tape and just put it around my card, and then I'm gonna stick it to the craft paper. And this is the final result. I really love how this card turned out, and I hope you love it as well. And if you give it a try, be sure to tag me at TPL Designs on Instagram. And I hope you enjoyed this video and it was helpful for you. Thank you for watching. Until next time.